Good afternoon. Kindly introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us who you are and what is your occupation.
Hi, my name is Kelly N. Esop and I am currently a final year social work student from the Northwest University Potchefstroom campus. I am also currently doing my internship at Witrand Hospital.
Yes. Hi, community of Potchefstroom. My name is Debbie Ngaba. I'm the head of department for the social work in Witrand Hospital, and I'm here to support Kelly Ann as I'm the supervisor during her internship program.
We hear that you are currently busy with the community project. Is it true?
Yes, it is.
Please share with us and the listeners and tell us more about it.
Okay. So I am currently busy with the community work project, and as part of my social work curriculum, it is compulsory for a final year social work student to do a community work project. So my supervisor suggested to me that I do a depression and suicide community work project, which was also a project that was implemented in the previous year by a previous student. And she also suggested that I look for different target group, for example, such as high school students. So we targeted high school students from Potchefstroom, from and around Potchefstroom. And what we tried to do and planned to do was to do an awareness campaign, which we did, and we had implemented it successfully. And then we also wanted to do an interview, so we rather decided to record, send a recording to the radio station. And we also decided to write an article for the newspapers, but we're also just waiting for the article to be published.
Okay.
Because mental health is our specialty in Witrand Hospital, so this past few years we've realized that within our community we are experiencing a lot of suicide cases and depression amongst teenagers and school-going learners. So the previous student of 2018 started on the project, but she was doing it with the University of Northwest, so we felt that it should be a continuous project, just to make sure that we try to reach as many people as possible.
Yes. And according to the research that we did, reading up an article, speaking to the right people, the relevant people who had statistics and more information, it actually showed that there was a need for such a project.
Okay. Kindly explain what depression is and how is it linked to suicide.
Okay, so depression is a mood disorder, and there are various types of depression. But the depression that presents itself within people that is most common, or the most common type of mood episode, is a major depressive episode or major depression. Then, according to the DSM-4, major depression refers to the recurrent presence of 5 or more of the major depressive episodes. And these episodes includes having a depressed mood or an excessive sadness, just being very sad, or having a loss of interest in the usual activities that you always do. And then also experiencing sleep problems, like for example sleeping less than usual or sleeping more than usual. And then also experiencing psychomotor retardation, moving slower than what you usually do, whether it's doing activities using your physicality or using your mental abilities. And then having a poor appetite with a decrease in your weight loss, having increased appetite with an increased weight gain, and then also lack of energy, having feelings of worthlessness, and also being indecisive, not being able to make decisions or being able to concentrate. And the most important symptom is having recurrent thoughts of suicide and about or death or about suicide. And these symptoms has to present itself every day for most of the day for at least 2 weeks in order for you to be diagnosed with depression. and it has to include at least a sad mood or loss of interest. And therefore, we can say that depression is a mental illness that negatively affects how one negatively affects one's thinking, how you feel, and also your behaviors. And then when a person becomes depressed, you continuously have these thoughts of wanting to die and planning to commit suicide, and thoughts of death in the suicide is also one of the symptoms, as I just mentioned.
Because the question was, how is it linked? Ne? So to add on what Kelly was saying, if you are feeling so depressed and worthless, it means at some point you reach a point where you feel like there's no use for you to be living anymore. You feel like there's no purpose for living, and you feel worthless and nobody cares about me. And that's what we experience mostly with the teenagers, the target group that Kelly has adopted in her project, that you find the students feeling like they don't belong anywhere. They are unwanted and there's no reason for them to live anymore. And then that's where the suicide part comes in. It's better for me to die because then it will be the end of me and I won't be bothering anyone ever again.
If you can tell us more, what are the contributing factors to depression or suicide thoughts?
Okay, but to mention just a few, biological aspects, these aspects can be gene related, for example, genetics, inheritance. A mother or a father or parent can pass this disorder on to the child. And then also neuroendocrine and neurotransmitters. These are basically like, how can I say? Let me just say there's abnormalities for neuro abnormalities in the neurotransmitters in your brain, as well as your temperament, having sleep abnormalities, and as well as how your brain anatomy is formed, or if there's dysfunction in your brain, and so on. And then the psychological factors would be just dysfunction, having dysfunctional attitudes, having problems emotionally, affect regulations, having sexual identity issues, as well as negative life events, and also perhaps having experiencing events where you have failed at something, or you have lost someone or lost something that's dear to you. Abuse is also one of the contributing factors, and these all fall under the psychological aspects, and also having poor coping skills and interpersonal problems. And then for the social part is mainly, for example, within the family, if you maybe your ways of learning, maybe learning habits within the family, if you the child perhaps learns the behavior within the family and so on.
And then also under social aspects, that's where you come mostly in as a social worker. It's the dynamics within the family and the kind of support that you get as a teenager, as your project is focusing on the teenagers, the aspects that you are faced with on a daily basis, poor support, finances, poor social circumstances, domestic violence within the household, all those things that the teenager finds themselves exposed to on a daily basis, and he doesn't see himself or herself fitting into that kind of circumstances, and it's better to withdraw themselves, and then they end up suffering from a depressive mood and then end up being suicidal because of the circumstances that they find themselves in.
As your community work project is targeted children and teenagers, can peer pressure be one of the contributing factors to depression and suicide?
Yes, definitely. It is one of the contributing factors. There are many, but teenagers usually find themselves under pressure to belong to a peer group, which is something that is very important, because remember that when you're a teenager, you're still striving for an identity, so you're trying to find yourself in groups that you want to identify with, but then usually these pressures sometimes have conflicting demands, and from these friends, which ends up clashing with the family or the parents, or usually the society norms. And for teenagers, by trying to satisfy these pressures, it actually creates stress and depression on a teenager. So yes, peer pressure is definitely a contributing factor.
Especially if you find that the foundation at home, for norms that, are the family is based on, and the beliefs and the discipline in the house and the house rules, all that. If such things are not grounded enough, then your child finds themselves out there. There is a lot of, we always say there's a lot of teachers out there. You teach your child this and then outside there. But then if you find a child that cannot be assertive enough to take a stand, then they are caught in a situation where they want to satisfy the friends. At the same time, the friends actually are putting them into the wrong direction, and only to realize late. Maybe when you get your progress report at school, you have failed because your friends have been telling you, don't do this, let's do this. And also, maybe diverting from the topic, you find teenagers that are forced to start drugs and substance abuse because of peer pressure. And when they find themselves not being able to cope with the demands of that, because it's also financial and it takes you away from your studies and all that, then the child gets depressed, and at the same time then it resorts to having developed suicidal thoughts. So we must be very careful as parents, but teenagers as well. On the social media, it is there, they can even bully you to do things that you don't want to do.
Kindly explain the effects that family members can experience when they have or staying with someone who is depressed or suicidal.
That is something that is very important, because it has a very stressful impact on the family. Because number one, for a parent to know that your child is sick, or to know that your child is thinking about or even considering or has attempted to commit suicide, is very stressful, and it also puts strain on the parents. And another aspect is also that the financial aspect, having to get your child the best medical care comes at an expense, because they have to look either for go to private doctor if they can't, or they perhaps decide that they want to go take the child to see a psychologist and so on. It does come at an expense. But of course, we also want to put out there that even though they do try their best by running extra miles to get the best medical care for their children, there are government departments and so on.
And then sometimes, families, ourselves as a family that has a child that's suffering from depression, we end up fighting as a family, because then we don't agree, number one, about the upbringing or about the discipline, and then the father will start blaming the mother. If it wasn't for you doing this, he wouldn't be like this. You are spoiling the child, or this kind of illness has never happened in my side of the family. So amongst the family members themselves, parents and siblings, then there's conflict as well. And you find that the parents are also labeled in the community. They start labeling you, oh, it's that parent of the child that wanted to commit suicide. Your child doesn't have a name by that time. They label them as that one who wanted to commit suicide, or that one that's drinking medication, So it's quite heavy on the parents and on the family at large. And they might end up also developing feelings of guilt and asking themselves, what is it that I did wrong? What could I have done to make the situation better? So it's a heavy burden as well on the parents themselves, in order, and they are expected at the same time to be supportive and to make sure that this person suffering from depression pulls through, and with the support of the family as expected.
Kindly add on, tell us how important is it for parents and teachers to always check up on their children?
It is very important for parents and teachers to check up on teenagers. The reason for this is because the disorder usually goes unrecognized for the main reasons of the stigma that goes around mental illness. Parents is usually not aware of the symptoms, and then there are signs that the child may display, and then they dismiss it for typical teenage behavior. And then children and teenagers may actively hide the disorder as well, and they may also have a fear of being perceived as odd or weird. And then an adolescent may not be aware of the symptoms either. So therefore it's very important for them to regularly check up on the child. We're not saying that you should overwhelm the child, but just to do so would at least help a lot.
And what advice would you give to parents and teachers to see that the learners are starting to act differently or are behaving not accordingly?
We always say the earlier you identify the problem, the sooner you'll be able to deal and the better the results you will get thereof. If a parent or a teacher is identifying one of the symptoms that were mentioned there, or maybe just a simple thing like dropping of your marks on your progress report, and you identify such a problem, it's better to take action, because some of the parents, they don't even bother to check the school work of their children. They don't even know how the child did this term as compared to the previous term. So the parents should try to get as far as possible involved in the child's work. Get to know some of the parents, they won't even tell you, my child's class teacher is Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. So schools are calling meetings, parents meetings, and that's where you get the chance to meet the teacher of your child, and you get to know what is being done at the school, because sometimes your child will be at home 12 o'clock midday, and then he will tell you, no, the school is out. But if you are attending the school meetings and you're meeting the teacher regularly, you will know at this time you should be at school, there is study period, or there is this activity that is happening. And parents must try to educate themselves as far as possible. Radios are talking to us these days, the newspapers. Even if you don't have to buy the newspaper, there's always an article where you can read. When you go to the clinic, there's always pamphlets that you can get. Try to educate yourself as parents. And when you get some information, you go and share it with the lady next door, and she will share it with the other one. And we always say, like in Witrand Hospital, we work as a team. Parents should also be part of the team. Even a team can be outside the hospital setting. It can be a team at school. You can form a team with other parents and with the class teachers of your children, and the child being the center point. So there are many things that the parents can do in order to help and support the children that are going through difficult times, because it's not easy for a child to just come to you and say, Ma, I'm not feeling well, or Ma, I'm thinking of killing myself. But if you know what to look for and how to identify it, and you talk to the teachers, you talk to the clinic nurses, you talk to the people around you, other parents, then it will be better to attack the problem before it grows even bigger.
Can depression or having suicidal thoughts be treated? If so, tell us more about it and how can you do it?
Yes, it can be treated. So if a child maybe presents the symptoms and a parent has noticed these symptoms, they can take the child to see a doctor, or they can take the child to a hospital, and they will obviously see a doctor. And the doctor will screen and then prescribe medication that the person has to take then. And also another thing, when the person is also thinking about committing suicide, or has tried to commit suicide, they can also be referred to a psychologist, and the psychologist can then see the person for individual therapeutic sessions.
And also this is the stage where, when sometimes we must be on the lookout as parents, when the child is starting to show the symptoms, if we don't address it too quick or sooner, because sometimes we will be just saying he's naughty, he's lazy, and we have seen the symptoms there. Some of them are lack of energy and lots of sleep and so on. So sometimes we as parents are going to say, no, he's just lazy, doesn't want to wake up. He must just wake up and do his work, he'll be fine, you know. And this is a stage where the child will be feeling more and more depressed. And sometimes what does the child does, and they will go and they will take drugs to self-medicate. Because then the drugs, what they are doing, they are making you feel high and they are making you feel better. So it will be like they are lifting your mood, and it will be an ongoing resolution that you are creating for yourself. Today I'm taking just a small puff of azole, tomorrow I'm taking 2 puffs and so on, and then the child gets hooked and they are addicted to the drug. So it is better, even if a parent is not sure about the symptoms, because they are not too educated to be able to identify the symptoms, you can go to the next person, go to the teacher, go to your local clinic. There's always important information that you can get, and then somebody can verify with you whether there is a serious problem or what needs to be done there.
So how important is it for mentally ill people to continue taking medication even when they feel better?
It is very important because compliance to treatment is one way of preventing relapse or preventing you to be readmitted to a hospital. And then the more a person relapses, the faster that person also deteriorates in their functioning. So compliance means maintaining a balance between your illness and also the social roles within the society. Therefore, it leads to less readmissions to hospital.
And it decreases the risk of, of yourself being a danger to yourself and also to being a danger to others. Because once the depression sets in, sometimes you feel suicidal, but at the same time you also want to take the lives of others close to you. That's why we find sometimes that, not only one family member has suffered loss of life. You find that one person has been depressed in the family and they decided, I'm going to take the rest of them. So in order for the lives of others to be protected as well, it's important that we make sure that once diagnosed, the person stays on medication. You feel better because the medication is in your bloodstream. You feel better because the therapy is working. But the minute you stop your medication, the minute you stop going for counseling and for your therapy, then it's a circle. It comes all over back again onto you. And you find yourself in more trouble, like she's saying. The more you relapse, then your functioning deteriorates. If you could do a certain tasks last year, and if you relapse 6 times in a year, the next time you won't even be able to, remember to brush your teeth, to remember to do things for yourself and so on. So the brain gets more and more damaged. So it's very important to stick to your treatment until such time that the doctor will be telling you it's time to stop, or let's see if we can decrease. But either than that, it's continue until further notice.
Just give our general community, families and friends a word of advice.
Okay, so the advice that I can give, and this is very important, is that communities and our society, depression and suicide is a reality and it should be taken very, very seriously. And then the signs and the symptoms should definitely not be ignored, and seeking the advice of a health professional should always be the first option when symptoms present itself within a child or a teenager. Too many times we dismiss these signs and the symptoms because we think we know the answers, or we think we know everything until it's too late. And then we also have to carry the consequences of our decisions. And then it is also important to bear in mind that prevention is always better than cure, because the earlier one can get the help, the faster the illness can be controlled.
For more information, if communities, families and teachers, if they want to get clarity and further information, who can they consult?
Okay, so for our communities, families, friends, anyone, teachers, principals. Communities can call Witrand Hospital Outpatient Department Help Desk or the Social Work Department via the switchboard number. And the switchboard number is 018-294-9100. And the communities can also visit the hospital website and also make use of the inquiry tab on the website, which is www.witrand.gov.co.za. And apart from making use of the website or calling Witrand Hospital, they can also make use of the local clinic as well as the hospital, because they'll also get information there.